Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing? We're back.
I am good. How are you?
Excellent.
Awesome. New look, new digs here. I'm just trying to.
I'm liking it.
Yeah, it's a little different. You'll notice the open box. That's Jay-Z's spot. He was off on assignment tonight, but he will be back returning with us next week. We are building this whole thing as it. Yeah, if anybody was watching it on the Facebook and everything like that, the timer was locked up. That was a custom script, and I'm not a programmer, and I suck at it, so that's why that didn't work very well. It was supposed to, however, it did not. But we're building this whole thing. Thanks to Ben and the teams for helping us out get this thing going. But we are rapidly approaching where all of us will be back together, and that is in Baltimore, where we have our winner, etc. That's coming hang out with us this year.
That is awesome. Yeah.
In the suite.
One can only hope.
Well, I think first he has to buy us a round of drinks, at least one round. I'm just saying.
So Joe Portash will be hanging with us. He got his room. We got all the other swag going to be hooked up and getting ready to get going on that one. So check us out. I think the show list is out already, right?
Yes.
Like what slots and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, so check that out on the website because that's coming quickly. We're doing the real Hazmat escape room, not the fake one.
Not the fake one.
Not the fake one, the real one.
Ba-boom.
Yeah, so I got to talk to Joe. I'm going to actually call Joe tomorrow. Joe, I'm going to reach out to you tomorrow. Call Joe. I'm writing it down right now. So what's going on with you guys?
Not much.
Really? I've heard totally different.
Well, let's just say it's been an interesting week for the old Kosh, and we'll just we'll leave it right there. But I salute.
Very nice. Cheers to you as well. I did have an interesting incident that I was part of.
I've from what I've heard, I'm on vacation, and I've heard there's been a few interesting instances at work.
Yes, I heard that too.
There was a major battery. I don't really want to say a major battery because I'm almost anesthetized to the whole thing. Where like major is not really major anymore. It's kind of like, yeah, we had a pile. Like all right. So I did see we had a third alarm fire. I believe in Manhattan. No, maybe it was Brooklyn. It was in Brooklyn. And there was a ton of batteries there again. And a lot of talking about what to do with batteries and everything like that. In fact, I think Mike is going to do some work with some people very close to us.
Yes, possibly north of
us, doing some battery work with them and gonna show them some stuff. So yeah, a lot of stuff that's going on with batteries alone.
Yeah, it's definitely as we progress through it, especially as New York City starts to see more and more of these and they start making the news, we get more and more people reaching out being like, what are we doing? What are we going to do when this hits us?
Well, you guys are having like hundreds of batteries. I'm going to just spitball and say a day maybe, where most places around the country like might see one or two. You get a fire where you have hundreds. Yeah.
It's like Ghostbusters. Like all of a sudden, like the batteries just started showing up, and then they were everywhere.
Dude, we had a third or fourth floor fire where the guy was repurposing, and this isn't the battery show even, but the guy was taking batteries and moving them from bad blocks to good blocks, and then reselling them. And incinerated the house. I mean, like it was a 4-story walk up, incinerated it. And so they call Hazmat there. And of course, the guy's on the 4th floor and they're like, we need to offload all these batteries. We need to put them in drums. So immediately we usually go with like a smaller, like 15-gallon type container. And the guy goes, I need the 55. And I'm like, what? No way. I'm like, hey, confirm the size. You know what? Make it an 85.
Holy shit.
Now I'm like,
Make it
Oh my
9 85s.
dude, it was 5 85-gallon drums. It was well over 1,000 pounds of
Holy
batteries.
shit.
So the chief was there, and I laughed because I saw him recently, and I said, we have to get this down the stairs. He's like, I'm gonna call a truck. I'm like, no. We get this. We'll take care of this. Don't bother. He goes, trust me, we'll get the truck. The truck comes up. 4 20-year-old bucks come running up the stairs, and they grab it. They put it over their head. They push it down the stairs. I'm like, that was the best idea I've ever heard. It was 4 20-year-olds.
Assign a trunk company to every battery incident.
Holy cow. Manhandled this thing around. It was incredible to see the whole thing happen. Oh, look at that. It's saying we didn't start on Facebook. That's no good. Hold on a second. I gotta fix that.
We're moving and grooving on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube's up, and I don't know why, but whatever. Keep going. But anyway, yeah. So there are a lot of battery things that are going on around New York City. I don't know.
And the rest of the, we're getting reports sporadically in other places that they're getting it. I was in San Francisco a couple weeks ago, and one of the big things that they were like, we need like an hour or two to talk about batteries. I was like, all right, are you guys seeing them? And they're like, they were like, yeah, we think we are. I'm like, what do you mean you think you are? And they had the Monday before I was there, they had a rekindle, a double rekindle. And I was kind of like, all right, is this a like, right? All kidding aside, guys, is a rekindle something that happens? Like, is this with the engine company that was there, the first due, whatever? Is this something that they're known for? Very rarely do we get a rekindle. Nevertheless, 2 rekindles in a row. And they were like, yeah, no, we almost never get a rekindle. I'm like, I will bet you dollars to donuts that if you go through that rubble and you go through that debris, you're going to find lithium-ion batteries in there. And that's probably what your rekindle was.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a great video. I should have pulled it down. Was some type of it looked like a recycling type facility where they got those big grapplers that come in and pull the garbage out and everything. And it was a battery recycling. So I'm guessing it's in China because it was quite the facility. And a guy comes up in a grappler.
Little kids were working?
Yeah, they were barely out of diapers, working in the piles. And you see a flare up, and the machine goes over and grabs the flare up and pulls it out. And then these guys are just like putting dry chem on it.
Dry chems, I saw that, yeah.
And then it just keeps flaring up, and I'm like, pull the thing straight out into the street and just like, pull it apart. I don't know. It was a very interesting way of doing it, but I don't know. There's so many different methodologies, and everybody thinks the way they're doing it is the right way, and I don't think there is a right way yet.
No.
I don't even think there's a wrong way yet.
No, because even some of the bigger instances that we've had, you turn around and the product and stuff that we're using, the things that we're using, they actually require us to calculate wattage. Like, we're not supposed to be putting in too much wattage into a barrel, and we have yet to do a calculation. We are just like,
remember the good old days when we used to just pull up and we put the wet stuff on the red stuff, or you had a fuel spill, and everybody's gonna flip a lid when I say this, and you wash the shit down in the gutter. Remember?
Now you just put Speedy Dry over it and it magically
right. It just goes away. Poof.
Well, those days. And the
Long
funny
gone.
thing is, I was laughing with somebody about that. They were like, "You can't do that nowadays." I'm like, "What's changed under the streets? Like, did they replace the piping? Is it all new infrastructure?" And it's still the same 180-year-old pipe that has gasoline, diesel, engine oil. It's just that it's frowned on now. It's the same freaking thing.
Right.
Whatever. And I'm not promoting throwing down, the paint and oil, but I'm just saying.
No.
Has everybody had a valid HF exposure yet?
As opposed to an invalid?
I guess. Yeah, I don't think anybody has had HF paper on as far as with us to verify that on or off.
Oh, you know what though? I will. I'm doing
Maybe
the
next time we
battery
do
thing
it.
on. I'm doing the battery thing on Saturday. I'm going to be shooting a battery and overheating a battery. I'll grab some HF paper, and we'll see what we get.
Yeah, why not?
So,
That'd be
and
a
you
good
know what?
idea.
Maybe I'll even grab a tube, or when I'm back at work, we'll light one off under a bucket, and then we'll HF tube, Draeger tube it.
And see, yeah, that would be great. See what comes out of those things.
So,
Maybe we can grab like a Ted Law bag of it or something.
have you?
Well, and not to go down a rabbit hole, but this also brings up the whole thing about the people using air monitoring for post fires to come off air, and with the ability of this stuff just to reignite on a whim. It's even more important to make sure you stay wearing your PPE and SCBA.
Yeah, and it reignites fast.
Right. Well, I think it was like 3.5 seconds or something I saw. It's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
It goes from 0 to, and if you catch on fire, then you're actually better off if it lights up on fire and you're in the vicinity than it is if it's gas, because the gas fills up the room, and if you're not on air, you're going to be choking really fast. At least if it burns, a lot of the product is burning off.
Yeah.
Two quick points I saw in here, and that was mostly, mostly my fault. Is I mentioned Baltimore and didn't mention Cold Zone. Chuck Fleury's on there, and I will be in Cold Zone on Tuesday.
Chuck, I'll see you next week, pal.
See you next Tuesday.
You're gonna see him next Tuesday?
See you next Tuesday. We will see Chuck and the boys from up there, and also because that whole nice big black section on top, that is for the advertisers, and I made a mistake and I screwed it up. So we are building that for next month. My apology, but Ron Huffman of Emergency Response and the Propane guys, incredible stuff. My apologies, Ron. But he is the guy that's sending Joe and to Baltimore. So hopefully we can all hook up and get together and share some stuff. So my apologies on that one. What?
You suck.
I know, right?
Built the entire everything else. You're gonna beat yourself up over the advertiser spot.
But we did have something that made the paper. I mean, I had phone calls about this like crazy about a ship fire that we had.
Yes, this is the one I'm interested in, because I got a couple phone calls, a few emails on this, and I was like, I don't know. See the facial hair on vacation.
Yeah.
Wait. You mean that's not how you guys go all the time up there?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I'll paint you the picture, because this is like a two-part picture. Is that the initial report was that a ship was on fire, and that was then over time, because the response was like an hour and a half to get there. Over time, it was refined to it was an engine compartment fire, and then that it was a chemical ship.
Oh,
so obviously everybody's in. Are we in fire mode? Are we in hazmat mode? Are we in marine mode? And a lot of people, and then again, this is just my 2 cents about the whole thing, is that a lot of people think very specifically. I think more of the hazmat mode, and then I kind of overlay my fire and technical rescue and all the other stuff to see how it all can play in. But on this one, a lot of overlays had to be done.
okay.
So when we got to the marine boat, they had a half dozen companies on there. Now, this is a big boat. I don't know how big it is, but I'm going to say
like the 343.
It's the Firefighter 2. So I think it's a 230-foot boat.
It is.
It is a big boat. It's a huge boat. And a beautiful bar and party room on this aft deck. It is real. No, I'm totally joking.
Catering.
There is no bar. There is no bar, allegedly. But they sent them all out because they figured it was just a recon, and they left hazmat back. I was okay with that. I was okay with that.
Why did they leave? Wait, hold on. Okay, now you're going to be okay with it. I'm totally not. Why would they leave? They left Hazmat behind for the recon.
Yes, because it was a fire and fire only at this point. It was an engine room fire, no chemical.
Okay, but they're aware that there's generally CO2 massive displacement during engine room fires on marine vessels.
Yes, they. I don't think that was known at that time, honestly.
Okay.
They have and this is again, I'm speaking as if I knew all this shit immediately. I'm giving you the end result.
Oh, okay.
All
right.
up front.
Okay.
But what was initially done as the engine fire was extinguished. It was outside of the bridge. They will not let it under the bridge, and so the Coast Guard's there and blah blah blah. So it sounded like it was basically done. It sounded like it was a very small fire. That's what it sounded like. It sounded like it was a small engine fire and it had no chemical, contamination or whatever it might be. Then the next day, they're asking guys to go back out. No, hold off on that for a second. They're asking the next day to see if we can go back out there and have a hazmat contingency to go out on the ship. And so they bring out, a couple companies to stretch a foam line, a couple companies for rope rigging, etc. Because we had to climb up a Jacob's ladder, which is, if you haven't had the pleasure of doing a Jacob's ladder, it is, the game when you go to like Great Adventure or something like that, and it's the ladder that's like at a 45, and you got to kind of like do that,
Jimmy,
vertical for 100 feet.
So, all right, did the Merchant Mariners laugh at you guys on a tagline going up a Jacob's ladder? Yeah, they did. At that point, you guys should have felt less like men.
There was a comment passed that said, "Oh, look, that's how the professionals do it, and look at how we do it."
Yeah, yeah, okay.
It was. They flew up this ladder like it was their job, and we had safeties on it, and rightfully so. Whatever. We get up to the top, and you know what? Yeah, Ben, if you could bring up the picture of the cylinders now. They have a room. Yeah, so that is the stack. There's the other half of the stack of just CO2 for the engine room. That is the pull compartment. So yeah, can you pause it there for a second, if you could? That's all right. There you go. So those two levers had to be pulled down to activate the system. The system dumps those cylinders, carbon dioxide cylinders, into the engine room. And the engine room is big.
It's an engine room.
It is.
Is it, just out of curiosity, was this a cargo ship? Was this a vessel?
Go a couple more pictures. You can see one of those upper deck ones, if you don't mind. There you go.
Oh,
one of those.
It was a big boy.
It was a petroleum carrier.
Yeah, but it was a chemical carrier. So this thing, and again, we didn't know this at the time, it was carrying something called, it started with an R, but it was basically an octane booster.
Okay.
It was a non-polar octane booster fuel additive. Okay, so but again, this ship for that for the chemical has a nitrogen generator. It basically takes the nitrogen out of the air and compresses it, makes it a gas. And so they had that thing flooded, and we don't have a nitrogen meter, but we were able to actually put our meter into one of the holes, and the oxygen dropped to 0 at the top. So wow. I'm confident of that. The other one is the CO2 for the engine compartment. And that was flooded with those cylinders. Now, that is a finite amount of CO2. Like once you dump the CO2, it's in a gaseous format because it's in those cylinders. They don't have liquid and they're not generating it. So once you dump it, you dumped it, and that's the end of it. And so there was a lot of concern with, first off, is the engine compartment, is the engine fire still going? Is the engine fire, once we vent, able to reignite? Is the engine fire, is the fuel still pumping? They're going through the list of what ifs. And
hold on. They is in the fire department, or they is in the Merchant Mariners? The
Merchant Mariners, let me pull back and give you a little perspective on that, because the Merchant Mariners are losing money. You know what I'm saying? So they are highly motivated to get this thing done. So now the engine or the boat is completely shut off, which is not good, because if you don't know how, and I don't really, but I learned, is that these engines use like a number 6 diesel, which is super duper thick, and it requires it to be constantly being heated and gone through. So if they shut the rig off, it takes like 3 days to heat the fuel up so it can be used again. So everything is off. They lost water, toilet, energy, power, electric, everything's off. Toilet stopped, everything. So, and then the Coast Guard is holding it outside the port, and they're not letting anything in or out. Now, that says how big of a deal this is that the Coast Guard is holding all ships going in and out of New York Harbor.
They shut the harbor.
Everything, and this is the harbor that feeds Bayonne, Jersey, Hudson. I mean, it's everything.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big deal. So there was a lot of discussion, et cetera, but they wanted us to meter at the top of one of the vent heads on the door, and to which I kind of said, like, we're not going to see anything. This is going to be on the floor, like. So after talking to Victor, who was their, I guess their firefighter, this crew, the crew to run this boat was only like 10 people. That's it. And one of them is a fireman. So he's the guy he had to put on Interspiro SCBA and accompany us. And the guy was aces. I mean, honestly, the guy is from the Philippines this ship was from? I think it was from Philippines. The guy spoke adequate English, very motivated to help. Excellent dude. He knew as soon as he came in, he's like 6 steps to the left, make a right, pull the handle, 7 steps to the right, forward, down the 5 steps. And I'm like, I'll just hold on to your belt. The guy was incredible. And obviously I can't show you all the pictures because there's still some stuff going on, but incredibly, a lot of amazing. And inside we went down 5 stories into this ship, and what turned out to be an engine. I'm not a mechanic, but the engine kind of blew apart, and that was the fire. The CO2 did keep it in check. If we can go to the meter picture, Ben. Just flip through a little bit. Yeah, that was our peak values for my entire trip through there. So the only thing that we got a low oxygen of 19.5. The 23 on the oxygen, that is not a true 23. I'm just going to say that out there, because what really happened was the thing started walking north, and then I fresh ass set it up on the deck, because I was like, I don't know why this thing's going up north. And that is a regular black. No, that's a red strap. So that is an IR based meter. But that 23 is not a true 23. The 19.5 probably is right. The CO2 0.095, that's negligible. If you breathe,
right. I was going to say, what is background for? Background was,
I think it's 0.05.
0.05, right?
0.08, somewhere in there. It's basically negligible. It's probably from me talking. But the thing is that, and this is what everybody was having a conniption fit about, was the PID was screaming. The PID was going off, and people were like, "What?"
Maybe you're going into an engine room.
I said, "This is well, I'm going into an engine room, and it's a smoke walk."
Yeah.
Like I'm going for, it's like a fire was extinguished, and we're going to overhaul that fire, and there's a light wisp of smoke. Your PID should be singing,
Right.
and that was from the top entrance all the way down to the seat of the fire. So
The day later.
a day later.
A day later.
Right. So a couple of questions came up, and this is from people that were there, and I think they're valid questions that should be mentioned on the show. Is why did my CO2 meter sensor not go up? And I can give you my hypothesis, but I'd like to hear what you guys think as well.
Well, I mean, listen, it's an engine room. It is still ventilated. It's not like it's a sealed unit. The engine's got to be able to breathe. It takes a tremendous amount of energy. So therefore, a tremendous amount of oxygen is required to keep these engines going. So over the course of a day, I mean, listen, CO2 is not that heavy. It's a heavier gas, but not by much. Anybody know what the vapor density of the CO2 off the top of their heads are? I'm going to guess a few. What is it? Maybe 34. All right, 16 and 16. Yeah, it's not insane. It's going to disperse. It's going to find its way out. You're going to get, you're going to get oxygen swapping out. It's going to change over. I don't think there's, you're not, I would imagine after a day that a cargo hold, any kind of hold like that, an engine compartment, you're going to replace the air.
Yeah. Right.
And this is day 2?
Day 2. This is day 2 after the fire was extinguished. Yeah, carbon dioxide is about 1.98. So it's about 1.53 times that of air. So it's right. Not terribly heavy. It's not like, oh my God, it's like 4, 5, 7.
No, but it's not. But I mean, you look at all of the CO2 runs that we go on in basements. We're there for 15, 20 minutes after we stop the leak, and our numbers are dropping significantly. And right. Sometimes we have fans on, but the fans are really just mixed. It's not like anything's being sucked out, like really sucked out. It's right. It's a gas, and it's going to disperse. And I know we tend to think of things as like, oh, it's going to be always at the floor, but you had a high volume release. You're in an engine compartment. It's not a sealed room. I'm sure people were in and out the entire time.
No, they kept people out. It was relatively. Now they say they closed the vents. Now there's a million vents in that room, so I don't think they closed them all.
Right.
But I would absolutely concur with you if they were running even the bilges, which from what I understand is like a bottom pump that gets the liquids out and stuff like that at the bottom. If they were running the bilges, there's possibility, because if I'm changing the volume of the room by reducing the fuel or the water in the bottom, I have to be pulling air in through the top.
Inside, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to have some changeover.
I don't think when they say, oh, we're closing off the vents, I think it's kind of like a shutter type. Yeah, like it's a shutter. I don't think it's going to be a like sealed.
Airtight.
Yeah, they're not a fucking submarine, right? It's like they like close the flap on a flapper valve. Like it's not, it's.
Yeah. Well, so one of the guys says to me, and tell me, this is my statement to him, and tell me if you think this is what you would add, change, or you think it's wrong. Is that the guy says to me, okay, and he was in a position of supervisor's position, and he says, so if this thing starts yelling, the meter starts yelling, which ones are you concerned about reading? Like what sensors here? I said, there's only 2 sensors that I care about them screaming at me. One is oxygen going up. That's a big deal for me.
Right.
The other one is flammability.
Yep.
That's a big deal for me.
Right.
Other than that, I don't care if I have a million parts per million of PID. I have a million parts of CO2. I don't care if the oxygen drops to 0. I have an SCBA on my face. It does not matter.
Yeah. Not even in the least. Now, the oxygen, obviously, because you're going to, you increase your chances of combustion, right? That's where you were headed with that.
Yeah.
And that would be my biggest, absolutely, that would be my biggest one. And then flammability, which
yeah.
I honestly, unless the product got out, I wouldn't expect any kind of flammability readings.
Right.
Bobby, let me ask you a question. I mean, I think I pretty much know the answer, but for everybody else out there, what was your level of PPE when you went in there?
Bunk gear and SCBA.
Boom.
And honestly, we went in because you got to think this is an engine fire, so it's going to be like the inside of an exhaust pipe, black, sooty, shitty,
nasty.
So you put your hands on the rails and you're like, oh god, your hands are black. So we wore rubber gloves. Some guys wore leather gloves and some guys wore fire gloves, but I kind of knew. You know what the thing is that when you walk in, I would say, with extraordinarily few examples, and I'm not a merchant marine or Navy guy or anything, but I'd be amazed if you're entering an engine room from the lower area. You're probably entering from the higher and working your way down into the zone. So with that being said, if I'm walking in and I open that top door and I'm not met with heat and smoke, there is no more fire. Continue your quest, Zelda, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I continue and I'm listening to my meters and I'm going down the steps and my oxygen is not going down or my PID is moderately yelling at me. Again, I'm not concerned. And even if it did, let's say it did start the node dive, stop your quest and turn around if you need to. Like you're the only one that's putting you in more danger is you. You can stop this quest whenever you want. But it's not like you open a door and you're going to be hit with a bat of like CO2.
Were they worried? Were they worried that the fire was still going?
I don't know. Like I'm not going to say it wasn't overdone. The line between it becoming, all right, this is kind of a ground ball, let's turn this into a drill, was kind of fuzzy. Because I think there was some of that because, like, how long does it take to get our gear up on the rig? I mean, that was for me, I was like, holy crap, this takes a long time to put everybody's bunker gear, right? Because everybody's gear is in bags because you can't climb up in gear.
Right.
So everybody's gear's in bags, all your SCBA, all your meters, all your now you got rope rescue, you got foam, you got hose lines, and now all the hose, because their pumps are down, are being pumped by the fireboat with salt water. What's the calculation modifier for salt water to foam? Dude, these are things I was like, I have no idea. I got to look this shit up. I don't know. Like I'm comfortable in my wheelhouse, but this is down the block a little bit.
Right.
So there was a lot to be spoken about. I think there was some goods and bads. I think from the hazmat perspective, I think that was a lot of what they were trying to conform to. And I think there was a couple of misconceptions about how this would work. And I think, as stupid as this sounds, my biggest hit, I had to repeat this story like 17 times because people loved my analogy of it, is that the way the CO2 system works in an engine fire is they throw the CO2 in there and it's supposed to crowd out the engine, right? It's supposed to crowd out the oxygen. And to the regular firefighter, this makes a lot of sense. I've smothered it. They say I've excluded the oxygen, I smothered it. That's only half the story. What you've actually done is you reduced the flammable range to nil. And that's how it went out, okay? So the way I analogize this is that you go to this party, right? You go into this big party, and it's in a room that's like 100 by 100, and there's like chicks there, and you're gonna hook up. You're gonna do awesome, right? So there's like 10 guys there, and you're all putting your moves out there, and then the CO2 gang shows up, and it's not like 5 or 6. There's 1,000 of those MFs, right? And they all crowd this room, and now you're trying to do your game, and there's guys all around you, and they're blocking you everywhere. Your mojo sucks. You can't hook up until they leave, and then the game's back on. So the only thing that the CO2 does is temporarily depress the action. It will come back to normal and not any better. It will only come back to normal. And so when guys are like, oh, that makes sense, I'm like, it's a pretty good analogy of how CO2 crowding works.
Dude, that's a great analogy.
you're crowding at the party and you're getting blocked.
Right. And then you're hoping in that time the engine's being shut down, the fuel pumps are being shut down, the lines are being shut down.
The cops get there and they shut the whole party down. Like they're like, all right, enough.
Yeah.
Shut this thing down.
Yeah.
Right. The heat leaves, everything's gone, and then the party sucks and everybody leaves and goes home.
Right.
So yeah, that was kind of the thing. It was an interesting scenario. It's still evolving. I still think they're parked out there. When were leaving, the Coast Guard got on there with smiles and clipboards, which means they're going to get paid.
I can imagine. I don't even think that vessel can go anywhere until their CO2 is replaced. Like just CO2, just that alone has to be brought back on.
Yeah, they got to be getting the full blessing.
Yeah,
they got to be tugged out into the water, and a guy gets sat on by some vessel to watch them, and they got to get the CO2 recharged. They got the engine report. They got to get it running water. They got to get like all the fire controls have to be checked and inspected. I mean, it's like a week, 2 weeks worth of work.
COVID checks. Everyone's got to get COVID check.
You never know. So, yeah. So that was it.
That's a hell of a run, dude. And you know what's funny is I was talking to Travis, I don't know, several weeks ago about maritime incidents and how they train on it. And a lot of people don't realize, it's not just East Coast, West Coast. People forget, we've got some rivers that go through the middle of the country. And, the economic impact from that, if something happens or a barge hits, whatever. And it's kind of a big deal that you may not be a fire department that has to deal with this a lot, but one of those barges just coming down the river and it just happens to have an incident in whatever locale. How many people have trained for that?
Yep.
It was eye-opening for me because, I've been on out in San Diego, the Midway, or you go to the Intrepid in New York City, and you go to these ship museums, and you're like, oh, this is cool, but you can tell it's been painted 1,000 times. Right. You're like, there's no way they were on these things. That is exactly what the ship was. It was not a cruise liner like Norwegian or Royal Caribbean. No. This is a real ship, and it was no frills, man.
Yeah, no, they suck.
Oh my God, everything was painted 1,000 times, and the doors everything worked, but I'm like, God, everything is like, and there's 10 guys running the whole show. Wow. Crazy. So kudos to them. I mean, it wasn't their fault that the engine went on fire, but geez, man, the work these guys do day in and day out, these freaking running up and down, thumbs up to them. So.
Wow. Good run.
Very cool.
That's it, guys. So thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to Ron once again, Ron Huffman and the crowd. I think he's
on him.
Yeah. I see him in the room. I see a bunch of our friends. We will see you next week at Cold Zone, and then we will see you in Baltimore for the big one. So if not, it sucks for you.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next Tuesday.